banners be removed that are existing in the front of the building at present. And that is for Murphy's Pub and Sports Bar at 51-14 Shumpike Road.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay.
Okay. That was probably done before
So-
the column was installed.
Brian's gonna be an abstention.
Okay,
So we need a motion to open up application 2519, and then we would make a motion to table it.
Okay, so moved.
second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, and now I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then we need a motion to open the public hearing for application 25-18.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Popper?
So is Mr. Slavinsky here? Yep, thank you. No, give it a try.
Give it a try.
We may be surprised.
Sam, do the wires fit yours? Older laptop?
I just have all the top.
He's probably got all the plugs.
Is it working again? Okay.
Yeah, but we're waiting to have that go up and see what happens.
He doesn't trigger it, we change the input, so,
We have to change the input.
yes, so, but it's not him plugging it in that triggers the change, we do. So when we do that, we go on,
Oh, the string goes off? Yes. Well, we gotta do what they gotta see.
yeah, if that's, I don't know. It's not when they plug it in, he plugs it in, and then I have to change the input to get it to read, so when I change the input is when it goes off. The stream button turns to blank. I don't know.
We don't know. Yeah. It's beyond our pay grade.
Thank you.
So it's when you change the input that
Yeah.
the streaming button blinks.
Yes.
And you
But
have to
that's
change the
only way
input.
to get it.
Right, you have to change the input to recognize that computer.
Okay, hold on.
Right.
There we go.
No, there it is, up there.
So
Those two
is
aren't.
it still streaming now, or,
Well, the stream
so it went
button's
off
on.
again?
Oh, it's went back, you're right.
No, it was just, last week it was only Matt's computer that did it.
And
Okay.
that's just happened this time too.
And
Yeah.
that
He
was,
is back to
Started
first.
streaming and then it just cut out again.
With Sam's.
Are we streaming now?
Can you move his mouse around or something? Click to the next slide.
We should be.
You probably gotta do like a shared screen so they can see this and the video.
Yes, we're still live.
Yeah, it was Matt's computer. Matt's
Okay.
computer did it last week,
okay.
2 weeks ago. So he can't come back again. Or at least he's gotta bring a different computer.
I don't have this time, so I gotta stand here and press the button. Am I good to go?
Oh, yes.
All right. Hello, my name's Sam Slavinsky. I'm the owner of Rev Industries, and me and my wife recently bought 900 Corporate Row. This is the layout of the building. When we bought it, there was a apartment built on the, it's a little bit hard to understand, but that whole front part is the apartment, but it's only upstairs. The entire bottom part is office space. There was an apartment up there, which was something we were looking for, somewhere where I could have my business and live on the same property. We found out after an unfortunate grease fire that that was an approved apartment. So that's what we're trying to do now, is get it approved, because we're the caretakers of the building. We've added an egress ladder. You can see it just outside the bedroom. The text is kind of small. And we had to do a couple other things for compliance, adding fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, that sort of thing, which we've done. So yeah, that's the layout now. In the back is Unit A and Unit B is where my business is, and we're renting out Unit C to a FedEx contractor. This is the parking that's available, just showing that there's plenty of parking for both my business and the apartment. That on the right side is the front of the building where corporate row is, and then there's 2 spaces as well in the back. Just a little bit about my business. We're a machine shop. We're growing, but it's just 2 of us, 2 employees. I run most of the machines, so it's nice to be able to be at home and at work. I can start apart, go up and see my kid and my wife. You know, we bought the building for this purpose, and there are other caretaker quarters in the area, as well as other residential, you know, houses. These are like the responsibilities that we're, you know, taking care of as the caretakers. Obviously, security, I can be there. We clean the building. All of the maintenance is done by me, fixing the machines and just general building maintenance, and then the landscaping around the building. This is us, family of 4, 1 fur baby and 1 human baby, and my wife. Reasons we want to be in Cromwell, especially where we are. We're close to Pearson Park, which is great for our child. The school system is great. It's a central location for our business. We're right off Route 9, and there's a lot of outside vendors that we use that are off Route 9. I mean, River Highlands is great. I hike there. And then we love Mitchell's. The stuffed French toast. Yeah, that's it.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I believe you had received my September 10th memo, which was my plan review of Mr. Slavinsky's application. And my review of the application confirms that the proposal is consistent with the zoning regulations definition of caretaker's quarters, and I will read that for you.
yeah, I have them all.
Caretaker's quarters is a dwelling used for the residence of a caretaker in connection with another land use, including commercial activity. So by description of what Mr. Slavinsky just gave for what he performs and what the actual commercial activity is, he does meet the spirit of the regulation, and I had no further comments or conditions that I would like you to consider. Any questions?
I would just like to note for the record that there were comments, basically the chief comments were from the fire marshal, and he noted that the applicant is working on these things, and he has no issues as long as this work gets completed. So can you tell us the status of are you done with the fire marshal? Did he see
Yeah,
everything?
he did. He came back last week, maybe Monday. I don't remember what day it was, but he came back to check on everything. So he saw that I think the big thing was the fire escape ladder. But yeah, we've added everything, new emergency lighting, so it's all taken care of.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I did go through the definition of terms that we have in here about, you know, caretaker. It's a dwelling used for the residence of a caretaker in connection with another land use, including commercial activity. And then the other one that is, and it only is under self-storage facilities in our zoning regulations. And it says a dwelling for a resident caretaker and his or her family is permissible as an accessory use, but it's only under self-service in that section of our,
Okay, but we allow them in the industrial zone.
Well-
You're talking about the self-service regulation.
no, I went through looking under caretakers. My concern is that you are in a zone that, with the child. And, there is, I took all kinds of pictures. That's a very busy road. Your back of your business, you're having people come in to service your business. There is just all paved area. There is nothing for a child there. And people going down, these are some of the cars that are parked with the other businesses. These are all of the other businesses down one of them is across from your, place. And what you are really putting there is you're not a caretaker, per se. You are an owner of the property. Therefore, you are the owner of, and you are now trying to have a resident with a child, not as a caretaker. You own the property. So therefore, as far as you being what is called a caretaker, you're living there, so you're not a caretaker, you are,
Well, you're arguing about the definition of a caretaker.
Yes, I
So,
am.
I mean, you know, so that's what you're arguing about, because you're saying that the owner of the property can't be the caretaker, but I don't see that anywhere.
I'm
So,
not
I
sa-
mean, so,
I
I mean, how can you
understand.
say that?
I'm saying it because that is a building, a residential home
Well, that's your interpretation of the
of a
definition
child.
of a caretaker.
With a child.
I'm not arguing about the child, what I'm arguing
I
about
am.
is the definition of a caretaker.
I'm just saying is that, you know, you can say a caretaker, so therefore, you own a house, you're a caretaker of the house and not the owner? Not one or the other?
That's not what we're talking about.
You're both, okay. I just feel that having here, and I understand that probably it was constructed, it's a beautiful thing inside from what I understand, that it was done by a construction firm, and I'm not sure when he built that, that looks just like a house. It doesn't look like any commercial building that I've seen. But I think he was in construction. I think he used that maybe to show with marble and things like that how he could build a house. I think he was a builder, if I'm right.
Yeah, I'm
And-
not, so I think I don't know if he originally built the apartment for that purpose. I know he moved down to Florida and he was living there when he was back up here. When we spoke to him, when he was selling the building, we got to speak to him. He said he has parents up here, I guess, so he was staying up here to take care of them. I mean, we didn't add a kitchen or we didn't add we added nothing to it. So it was a full apartment when we moved in.
Right.
And we are, I am the person that takes care of everything on the property. We don't, it's a two-person company, so we don't hire any of that out, the landscaping or cleaning, any of that. It's all done by us.
And I can understand that, and I sympathize with you and all, but I'm speaking as a mother, a great-grandmother, and things like that, and I'm looking at the child. I'm also looking at the businesses along there that just come up and down that road, and they're not expecting to have a child on that road. If you're gonna be living there forever, and maybe have another child, and it runs out, that is not a place really,
But if a child runs out on the street, it's gonna run out on any street.
well,
I mean, come on, Alex.
but no, but do you expect when you go down into a corporate thing that you're gonna have a child run out in front of your
Listen,
car?
I'm a driver, and I'm a licensed
Okay.
driver, I have to expect.
That's
every-
only my perception, and that's how
bring
I'm
your
looking at
child to
it.
work day.
I'm gonna make a motion to open this up to the public.
Right,
Second?
okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Does any of the public have any comments on this application?
Oh, yeah, sorry. James Demetriadis, 272 Skyview Drive. As I'm hearing this discussion and debate, I think that the business owner and the property owner wants to be able to, I'm assuming based off your description of the business, you and your partner you employ are there a lot, long hours, kind of a situation where you're building things based off of what orders are coming in. And part of the reason that you chose a property that had what you thought was mixed use was so that you could take care of whatever needs to happen on a more consistent and long-term basis, that you wanted to kind of work where you lived and lived where you work. Yeah. So, I mean, I think when you're thinking about, our zoning regulations, and we want to have harmony within our zoning regulations, Bruce has already opined that this meets the definition of caretaker's quarters. I'm seeing a nod. So I think that, yes, this is a non-conforming original use, but, the property already had the apartment there. I think we have a business owner that is hopefully going to continue to grow and be successful in their business. Hopefully he keeps hiring more people, he expands, and hopefully, he stays in Cromwell with that business. He has other tenants that are there. I think, if differences of opinion about where kids are raised aside, which I don't think is our purview, if it meets the definition of caretaker quarter, if it meets the requirements that the fire marshal has said and the business owner has said that he's meeting them all, I think it's something that we should consider. I also think that given where Corporate Row is located, it's not like it's Sabethy Drive. It's located right off a hillside where there are dozens of houses within 100 yards. So, you know, I drove by the property. I thought it was a house. Like frankly, I drove past the property and I thought it was a house. It's clearly designed for mixed use or for the appearance of something that kind of has more harmony with the houses on Hillside than it does with everything else in Corporate Row. You know, I think from my perspective as mayor, you know, I want to encourage business growth and I want to make sure that, you know, we recognize that different business owners may have different business needs, and this seems like a good way to kind of blend together some of the needs that he has to maintain for his other tenants and also hopefully continue to grow his business in town. So thank you for your presentation tonight. Obviously, it's your discretion, but I just want to speak in support of the applicant.
Thanks, Jan.
Thanks. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Wait a minute.
I have comment.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right,
don't
well,
close
I was gonna allow it,
No, we should, can't close it.
Close it.
Right.
commissioner
Right.
comments.
Not the public comments, but we're still.
Okay, go ahead.
So here's my question to Bruce. What are the boundaries that we put or need to think about when we use a caretaker status in an industrial zone? What we come, do we look at those if it expands to more industrial zones, if something like this comes up? Or if the use is modified or changed over time, are you gonna be there to say, no, you can't do that in the caretaker zone?
What would be the modification? Give me an
Playground set outside.
playground set would not be an accessory use for, in that zone, so it would not be
That's the
permitted,
kind
right?
of things I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't, I'm just saying, okay, you're saying it's okay, I understand the definition, it's that particular interpretation. What are the
Caretaker's quarter, okay? So let me talk, don't interrupt me, okay? It's a caretaker's quarter, okay? It's 5 years from now, the business is doing well, and Mr. Slavinsky moves to a house in Cromwell, okay? That apartment is still there. Mr. Slavinsky has one of his workers, okay? One of those workers is now gonna may occupy that quarters. What Mr. Slavinsky can't do, and we'll put it on the record, this is not a two-family house, okay? So that's your question. It's not a two-family house. This apartment is meant for a caretaker in an industrial zone. That's the purpose of the apartment. If, 5 years from now, as I said, Mr. Slavinsky's moved, and he sells the building, he's gone, okay? And some other person buys it, and they decide, well, I got an apartment on the second floor, I'm gonna rent it out. They can't do that, okay? That's your question, they can't do that, no. That's not the intent of it. The intent of it is, in this building, this is a caretaker's quarter. If this was a two-family house on Main Street, you could do whatever you wanted with it. But because of the nature of where it is and the regulations, this is not gonna be an apartment for rent 5 years from now. It can't be.
Thank
So-
you for that explanation.
Let me just go on that. So what you're saying is, say that he
I needed to know.
sells it. The person that buys it has to then live in the apartment.
No, the person that buys it doesn't have to live in the apartment. Whoever lives in the apartment has to be related to a business in the building.
Oh,
It has to
okay.
be there for
I
the purpose
just
of the
wanted to
building,
make
yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
therefore, he has to
status
either
as
be a
caretaker.
worker in that business or have a vested
Or he could be the
interest.
professional caretaker. He doesn't necessarily have to work in the business. His purpose is that he's there to take care of the building.
He's a
property.
Okay, so he's being hired
Yeah.
as the caretaker of the
Yeah,
property.
property, yeah.
I just wanted to,
No, that's, no.
but also, and as you said, is that like, when you have somebody come in with a family and with children, in this, they cannot have an accessory, they can't put up can they put up swings in the backyard?
No, I don't believe.
Technically, it wouldn't be permitted in the zone.
Well, I'm just making sure that everybody understands. Also, by allowing this in this one, does that open to all the other areas in town?
We allow them in all the industrial
Okay.
zone, that's been part of it. This isn't opening, this isn't setting a precedent.
No, I'm
that
not
already
saying that,
exists.
but
They're
you,
allowed, but only by special permit.
by special permit,
So every other
okay.
caretaker apartment that wanted to come in would need a special permit,
Right.
separate and
Yes.
distinct from,
Yes.
so they're decided on a case-by-case basis, that's
Right.
the point.
So, but you could still have them come in with small children.
Well,
That's what I'm just
That's not on the
asking.
application.
We're not regulating that. We don't regulate the nature.
No, I'm just saying it, but I'm just saying
You know,
is,
we can't say old people can't be caretakers, so we can't say
Okay.
families can't be
Alright.
caretakers, so.
We're regulating the use of the space.
The use of the space and the zone that
okay,
necessarily the age
that's,
of
right,
the
and I understand.
occupancy.
I mean, we had a business and things like that, but, you know, so we can, anybody else that would like to come before us and speak on this? Anybody else on the,
Thank you. No, I'm good.
okay,
No,
Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
In favor?
Aye.
opposed,
None?
Opposed to close the public
closed,
hearing?
no, I'm sorry.
No.
I thought you said all in fa-
No.
right,
That was to
oh,
close the public hearing.
I'll close it, that's fine.
All right, so now I'll make a motion to approve application number 2518. Application for special permit under section 4 Town of Cromwell zoning regulations to allow for caretakers quarters at 900 Corporate Row. The only condition is that this is for a caretaker of the property. It is not considered a residential rentable dwelling unit.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
Me,
One.
that's right.
You are approved.
You're approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam, you can take down your public hearing sign tomorrow.
I'm waiting for the school bus to go down.
Said the same
That may happen.
No, they may not, they may not. They can't have any
Next.
swing. It's just,
Okay.
but whatever, I mean, everyone has their right.
Next application, I'll make a motion to open a public hearing for application 2526, special permit under section 4C2, Town of Cromwell zoning regulations, to obtain a liquor permit at 150 Sabethy Drive. Application is Jennifer Marazzi. Owner is Randa LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're up.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Marazzi. I'm the owner of the, well, soon-to-be owner of the 1851 Kitchen and Cocktail Bar at 150. I've been calling it Sabeth. I hear everyone else saying Sabethy. I'm not sure which one is correct.
It works.
So,
We'll go with
applying for a liquor license. The restaurant will be New American Cuisine, so it's American food influenced by global cuisines. I currently hold a liquor permit in Colchester at another restaurant. I've held that permit for 8 years with no violations, so it's a very safe environment, and we look forward to opening there. I'm not sure what else I should provide for
No,
information.
no staff comments.
No staff comments? Any changes to the existing footprint of the building or the pre-existing operation of the building?
No, other than the fact we added one stall into the women's bathroom.
That's fine.
Yeah, we're just a lot of deep cleaning and renovating.
Anybody have any questions?
Questions?
And also, Madam Chair, Ms. Morosi stated that her new sign would occupy the existing space that was the previous sign, so it would be the same size and the same location.
Okay, I think that the signs have always been there and just changed.
Yeah, same wooden sign. I'm just gonna put a placard on it.
And what's the name of your,
The 1851, which is the year that Cromwell was incorporated.
Huh.
Yes.
Was
Historical
Cromwell?
reference.
right,
Which
okay.
restaurant in Colchester do you operate?
Fresca Bar and Grill,
Mexican.
Mexican fusion.
Anybody from the public that would like to speak on this?
Okay, seeing none, any commissioners' comments? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to approve application 2526, special permit under Town of Cromwell zoning regs to obtain a liquor permit at 150 Sabethy Drive.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Congratulations.
so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Cromwell.
Look forward to it.
Let's go. Hold on, did you guys bring samples of pizza?
I already have it all set.
Time out, rewind. Didn't we just did this like about a year ago, didn't we? I feel like okay.
Somebody else was another
I
applicant.
know that they,
Yeah, they didn't work out so well. Okay, so the application 2522,
He just left. Stuart did.
I know.
Oh, really?
I know.
He's
I'm
out
just-
talking
Yeah,
to
yeah,
him.
I've
I'm
been
just
there.
asking, application 2522 is,
Colchester's like a little.
100
handicap.
what?
There's a couple
no,
places.
that's the light pole.
He said,
That's gonna be continued to-
yeah.
because they didn't
No,
have
we didn't
proper
open it.
signage. I
No,
know.
we didn't open it.
Right,
didn't open
so
it.
I'm gonna just do nothing with it.
Nothing, that's right.
Okay.
We didn't open it.
All right, next is application 2523. I'll make a motion to open that public hearing, and that's, application to amend special permit, section 3.6.C4 of the Town of Cromwell zoning regs to modify the master site plan at 100 Berlin Road. The applicant is Alpine Residential LLC, and the owner is M360 Berlin Land Holdings LLC.
Okay, second on that? Okay.
I'd just like to note while the applicant, yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just note for the record that this is an application to modify the existing master plan at 100 Berlin Road. So obviously, the master plan is a concept plan. You'll note from there, there's general information showing the general location, the site plan information. There's kind of a drawing, a concept plan for the architectural elevation. If the commission is to approve the modifications that are presented tonight, the applicant will go back to the drawing board and prepare an engineered site plan. They'll also be back with actual architectural plans for the buildings. What we're approving tonight is the concept, okay? The concept, the changes to the site plan, that's really the big part of what we're approving, okay? And if that's approved, then they go back to the drawing board. They have their engineer draw a new site plan, which is obviously gonna be very detailed. It's gonna have parking, it's gonna have utilities, it's gonna have drainage, it's gonna have everything. And they'll come back with architectural elevations of the proposed buildings, which will also have everything. So what we're seeing tonight is just the concept. And just wanna make that clear so everybody understands that. You're not gonna see a final site plan, you're not gonna see final architectural elevations, because they have to prepare all those.
And you're
So I
not
just
gonna
wanna
see
note
what it's
that-
gonna be
Yeah.
made out of.
Yeah. So they're here this evening. We're very excited to have them here, and they'll be making their presentation.
Yeah, just for the record, we're gonna pass out a hard copy of our PowerPoint presentation. And Stuart, I did plug it into the laptop.
Yep.
We're on, off?
Let's see if yours shuts it off.
Oh, sure. Attorney Megan Hope, Alter Pearson and Hope for the record representing the applicant.
James, are we still streaming? Thank you very much.
All right.
It is Matt's computer.
Okay. All right, again, for the record, my name's Megan Hope. I'm an attorney with Alter, Pearson, and Hope in Glastonbury. I'm here tonight representing the applicant Alpine Residential LLC. Their contract purchasers for 100 Berlin Road and the adjacent lot 15R Christian Hill Road. We've submitted an application to amend the previously approved master plan. A couple of housekeeping items. We did send out the required notice. As this is a public hearing, we sent out notice to the abutters. I did submit the certificate of mailing to Stuart's office, so he has those originals. And also for the record, we did post the sign, and I'll hand that over to Stuart for the record.
Thank you.
All right, with me here tonight, representing the applicant, we have Todd Scheffler and Nick Rosato, both of Alpine Residential LLC. We have Sealant Pather, who's our architect from Benfield Architects, and Rock Emond, who's doing the PowerPoint clicking for me. He's our professional engineer with SLR. Briefly, I want to go through the team's experience. We're very experienced in residential communities. We're operating currently in 4 states. We have thousands of residential units that we're currently owning and operating. We also have retail components in many of those developments as well. And we're in the process, similar to this project, in other communities where we're getting approvals for additional units to be added to our portfolio. All of our properties are operated and managed by other arms of our operation of our business. That's Beechwold and South Oxford Management. You go to the next slide, Rock, thank you. Again, our managing partners, William Rosato and Todd Scheffler, who's here tonight. So should you have any questions about their experience or how we develop and manage these properties, we'd be happy to answer any of those questions. But what I wanted to convey to the commission was that we do have an applicant who's very experienced with different multifamily projects. Next slide, please. Again, as I mentioned, we have Beechwold Residential, which is an arm of the overall company, and they have different members who are managing that all within the same building as Alpine. But they own and manage the multifamily properties. Over 16,000 units is all happening within the umbrella of our company. Next slide, please. South Oxford Management will be the entity that will be managing this specific project in Cromwell. They manage, as I mentioned, over 16,000 units, over 72 properties in 6 states. We will be using our local Connecticut team because we have many properties in Connecticut, so the local team will be managing this site, and they'll be involved as we move into some of the more finer details, as Stuart had mentioned with this site, as we're looking at the amenity program, unit layout, and design of the individual units and site layout. We're going to be using the knowledge that our management team has, because they know exactly what that renter in Connecticut is looking for and expecting within a development. So we're lucky enough to have them along during the design process so we can make sure that our product will be correct for the market. Next slide, please. Okay, you'll be hearing a little bit later from our architect, Seelan. I did just want to put a little bit of his portfolio. He's also very experienced. Bainfield Architecture does projects all over the place, all over Connecticut. Very experienced in being able to deliver a high quality product. Just wanted to show you some of his portfolio because it's very impressive. But again, another member of our development team who has a lot of experience in this space. Next slide, please. All right, so we do need an experienced architect, obviously, because we have a very challenging site. I know everyone's familiar with the existing conditions at 100 Berlin Road. We have the old hotel, and I have some existing conditions. This is a view, an aerial view from Berlin Road looking north. Those houses at the top of the screen are sitting on Christian Hill Road. We obviously have a blighted property. We're having trouble controlling access to the property. It's been boarded up and people are breaking in. So we've had long-standing issues with this property. You can go to the next slide, please, Rock. Again, I know everyone's familiar with what it looks like from Berlin Road, but it is a property that needs to be demolished and redeveloped, and I think that's clear from these pictures. And on the inside, it's also in a very poor shape. We have a lot of mold issues, pipes that have burst, also people that have been living in there and doing things they're not supposed to be doing. So the site is in a very poor condition currently, and so we're hoping that this amendment to the master plan can help this project move forward. Next slide, please. All right, I just wanted to reorient everybody with the site. I know we're all familiar with it, and just to orient you, on the screen in front of you to the left side is Berlin Road, and over to the right side is Christian Hill. To the top of your screen is I-91 and the ramps that access it. So our existing site is 12.7 acres. That includes the 2 properties, 100 Berlin Road, which is closer to 91, and then 15R Christian Hill Road. There obviously are 2 main existing structures on the site. One is that existing hotel building closer to the Berlin Road, and then the structure closer to Christian Hill Road is a parking garage. The site slopes quite dramatically. It's about elevation 23 down by Berlin Road, and it's rising up towards Christian Hill Road about 64 by the time you get to the top of the site. A couple other features I wanted to point out: that yellow dashed line that you're seeing is the limit of the 100-year flood zone. Pretty much the entire site that we're proposing to develop is outside of that except for a little portion in that southeasterly corner of the site. We do have some wetlands as well. Those are highlighted in the blue shaded color. Those are entirely on that 15R Christian Hill Road. And then Colesbrook obviously is sort of clipping the easterly side of the site. And just for a little bit of context, everything to the left side of your screen is obviously in that commercial district. We have Lowe's just to the bottom of your screen, and then the Christian Hill Road neighborhood is all single-family residential. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. So this is a picture of the existing zoning map. Both sites are currently in the mixed-use zone. That was changed when we originally applied for the zone change and master plan back in 2022. So I just wanted to point that out. That brown color is the mixed-use zone. That's already been changed. Everything to the right is that R25 residential, and then the green color is the highway business, which is all that commercial core that's on either side of Berlin Road. Next slide, please. Okay, just wanted to do a quick recap of the previous approvals. I was involved in the project with Lexington Partners back in 2022. So as Stuart had mentioned, when you're applying for a project in the mixed-use zone, it is a two-step process as far as zoning goes, and that's exactly how we proceeded back in 2022. We came to you originally for a zone change and a master plan, and that was approved on, I remember, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. And then after that, we went and got our wetlands permit for work within the upland review area. And then we came back to the commission with all those details, like Stuart had mentioned. We applied for the special permit and the site plan. For that final plan, we had elevations, all the details on landscaping, parking, et cetera. We also got the flood zone permit as well for that limited work we have within the flood zone. So that was all completed in 2022. In 2023, we did go to the town council and get approval for a tax abatement as well. And as part of that tax abatement, it was agreed to provide 10% of the multifamily units as affordable for 40 years at the 80% AMI. I remember that was something we had talked about at the zoning level, but it was codified in the tax abatement with the town council. So, very quickly, I just want to remind you what the approved site plan was and then show you what our proposal is. Because we are amending that original master plan, I think it's important to sort of remind you what you previously approved so that you have context on how we're deviating from it and how we're staying consistent with it. So this was the approved plan that the commission approved back in 2022. Again, Berlin Road is on the left side of your screen, Christian Hill Road is on the right side of your screen, and 91 is to the top of the screen. So starting at the left, that orange building was approved as the commercial building, and then as we moved into the site, the building started stepping up as you move towards Christian Hill Road, sort of working with that existing topography that's existing on site. So we had residential units, apartments are all those purple buildings in the middle of the site. We were maintaining a portion of that existing parking garage that's closer to Christian Hill Road. Part of it was coming down, part was staying. And then we also had townhomes sort of buffering Christian Hill Road from the rest of the development. So those are those small rectangles on the right side of the screen. A couple other things I wanted to point out. We only had one access point, and that's from Berlin Road. That's at that left side of your screen towards the bottom. We did have access from Christian Hill Road, but it was gated and only for emergency access. So there was no vehicular traffic that could come in through that access point unless you were an ambulance or fire truck during an emergency. We did provide for pedestrian access from Christian Hill to the open space. So when you're seeing those woods sort of on the bottom portion of the screen, we were providing a public access easement so that people from Christian Hill Road could come and walk within the open space. That's something that's currently happening on site now. It's a place that people come to walk their dogs, so we were going to codify that with access easement rights so that people come and walk within that area. But again, when the board approved this master plan, you felt that it met the spirit of the mixed-use zone, which was to have a mix of commercial and residential units, to have that live, work, play component that's in the policy section of your MU zoning district. Next slide, please. This is our approved site plan. Again, much of it is very consistent with what you previously approved. We have the singular access point on Berlin Road. The access point on Christian Hill Road is still emergency access only, it's gated. We do have a pedestrian connection from Christian Hill Road to that open space, so that is still consistent. Regarding the buildings, we continue to have commercial square footage along Berlin Road, that rectangular building on the left side of your screen, that's the commercial building. And then as we move into the site, again, we continue to have the residential apartment buildings. We've modified some of the amenity space, but we still continue to have courtyards and pools and other active amenity spaces. I'd say one of the major changes with this plan is that we've eliminated the parking garage. We previously had, we were maintaining portion of the existing parking garage, and we also were constructing a new parking garage under some of the multifamily buildings. So all the parking garage components have been eliminated from this plan, and we've opted instead to do all surface parking. My clients in this instance feel that the surface parking is safer and something more expected for our tenants, as opposed to being in a parking garage or subsurface, specifically in this suburban type area of Connecticut. Another positive aspect of the change in this site plan is that fire trucks now are able to drive totally around the building. If you remember before, because we had the parking garages, there was limited access. You could only get on 2 or 3 sides of the buildings. So this is, we feel like, a big enhancement from the previous plan as far as like a circulation component for emergency response vehicles. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I wanted to provide this cross-section. The cross-section on the top was one that we showed in 2022 as part of those approved plans. And then the cross-section on the bottom is for our current development. I thought it would be helpful to just remind you of the maximum height and the building massing that you had previously approved. So if you're looking at the screen, again, Berlin Road is to the left side of the screen, and Christian Hill is off towards the right side of the screen. So when we start on the left, we're seeing that we're still maintaining that 1-story commercial along Berlin Road. As you move more to the right, we are proposing a 5-story residential building. We previously had 4 stories in this portion of the site, but you had approved a maximum of 5 stories. As you move further to the right, we have the 1-story amenity building, which again was on the previous plan. And then as you go all the way towards the right, towards Christian Hill Road, you had approved previously 5 stories, and we are maintaining 5 stories. What we've done, obviously, is eliminated the garage parking story, and it's just all residential now because that parking has moved to surface. But the maximum building height approved before was 56, and we are not exceeding that maximum building height. So we've maintained that maximum height that was previously approved in 2022. Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? All right, in case you're would like it more in a chart scenario, what I did here was create a chart with our approved plan in the column in the center, and then our proposed plan on the right. And this just goes down through each of the different aspects of the plan so that you can compare them. We decreased commercial square footage slightly from 31,000 to 13,000. Regarding residential units, you had previously approved 274 units. 254 of those were rental units, and then we had the 20 townhomes. So we're now decreasing that overall down to 267 units. Those all will be rental apartment units in the 2 buildings, as I just showed you. Parking has increased from 487 to 533 parking spaces, and obviously, as I previously mentioned, those are all going to be surface spaces, and there'll be that 360-degree access around all of the buildings. Amenity space has decreased slightly, but really has just changed with the slight change in footprint and layout of the buildings, but we're still maintaining the amenity building, the pool, the courtyards, and obviously the walking trails and the passive space located within 15R Christian Hill Road. Again, the maximum building height, we have not exceeded what was previously approved. Previously, the max was 5 stories, 56 feet, and we're maintaining that. From an elevation standpoint, we're actually a little bit lower by 0.64 feet, but we're essentially maintaining what was previously approved. And again, we are maintaining the pedestrian and emergency access only from Christian Hill Road, which I know was something critical from the previous approval. So I just put together this chart as a way to compare what was approved in 2022 and what we're proposing currently today. All right, with that, I'm going to pass it over to the architect, and then we'll pass it over to the engineer.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, my name is Seelan Patha. I'm a principal at Bimefield Architecture.
Excuse me, do you have a card? Does everybody have cards that's gonna speak?
No, but you want me to write it?
Yeah, if you wanna write it down, give it to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our firm is based in South Norwalk, our mixed-use in Connecticut. Our mixed-use portfolio extends from New York to Massachusetts, with the majority of work being Connecticut. We're very familiar with multifamily development. We haven't worked in Cromwell with you before, but we're all around, including very close to Farmington and West Hartford. And just as an aside, our senior project architect, who couldn't be here today, grew up in Cromwell and used to work in that existing building. He'll be at the next meeting. As an office, we've always been interested in placemaking and creating communities in our work. We try to create places that people see as homes, not just apartments, somewhere they feel like they're part of a community. That's part of the concept we try to embrace as we approach every development. So that's the conceptual approach, and this project was no different. There was a good roadmap for this project with the previously approved concept, and you've seen that. So some salient design similarities. Megan's been through a few of these, but just in terms of the way we proposed this design. Both proposals have retail component lining the street with a large residential development behind, albeit the new proposal has smaller retail component, slightly smaller. Both proposals have separated the building mass to address the topography of the site. 3 buildings slowly marching up the site. Both proposals preserve the eastern wooded area of the site for walking trails and outdoor space that is accessible to neighbors of the development of Christian Hill. The scale and massing of the residential buildings in both proposals are similar, and you'll see that in the 3Ds. Go to the next slide, Rock. That's probably better for this discussion. Thank you. The previous proposal lined the edges of the properties with townhouses. Those are removed in the current proposal. The setback of the main building from Berlin Road is about 200 feet, 80 foot to the retail. It's about 260 feet. Did I get that right? 460 feet. Sorry, 260 feet to Christian Hill at the rear. So much larger setback than the previous proposal. And the current proposal expands the outdoor amenity courtyards available to residents. So that was a big part of our design. Megan suggested that our amenity space, interior amenity space, is slightly smaller, but the outdoor amenity spaces are much larger. And there was a salient design move to create these pockets of spaces as you walk up the site. So here you see the retail building lines the street. It serves as a foreground element that lines Berlin Road and is consistent with the approach of other retail buildings in the street. There's parking in the foreground, then the retail building. And what this retail building will serve to do is control the visual scale of the development. When you're on Berlin Road, your view angle will be obscured by that retail building, so that serves the development. One basic design approach here is to create a series of streets. So what you're looking at is we loop streets all around the site. I'm sorry, I brought a pointer, but the pointer doesn't work on this screen, so I'll have to describe it. But when I say we created streets, you have a street, you have parking, sidewalk, some planting, a front yard, and then the building. This is consistent of urban planning, good urban planning, just creating streets in an environment to create a sense of community. And what we will do on this development is create direct entries. So each of those apartments will have a front door, essentially, from their living room out to that street. So it'll feel like a townhome. Although it's not a townhome, it's an apartment building, it'll feel like that, because it'll have a direct entry door all around, which you couldn't do before. But now that we've surrounded and looped the street around the entire development, you'll be able to do that. And you'll be able to park on different parts of the site and access your unit easier. You won't have to go to the front entry. So we saw that as a plus. Some numbers here that we call that building A, the lower building, and building B is the upper building, and the space in between them is the central courtyard. Building A has a courtyard of 10,000 square feet. Building B, oh, sorry. Let me just go through the numbers, Rob, and then I'll come back. Thank you. Building A has 10,000 square foot, 10,000 square foot courtyard. Building B has a 6,000 square foot courtyard. And that central courtyard is expansive. It's 12,000 square feet. The internal amenities, Megan will go through those numbers. So next one, thanks, Rob. Oh, that's great. Just new technology. So, we have 3 courtyards, and that's the principal idea, like I said, of the design. And what this gives us an opportunity to do is create varied experiences for the community. So just for example, and these are all our projects at the bottom of the screen. What that means, for example, is that courtyard A could be an active courtyard with games and so on, and maybe grilling stations in here. Courtyard B is the pool courtyard, and could look something like this. And courtyard C could be a more reclusive courtyard, quieter and so on. So it's that opportunity created by having these 3 spaces creates a far more vibrant place for the community. Next one. Rob, please. Again, our projects. Another central design idea here is you always want to try and create a sense of arrival. You want to feel that you've arrived at a place and this, you belong and it is a place. And this is what this seeks to do. Is building A is what we call the arrival building. That's where you have your leasing offices, and you'll have people greeting you. You'll have future resident parking. That's where you arrive in site. You know that's the entrance. And then once you do that, there's an opportunity for drama. Like you could create a glass building, and you look all the way through and see the pool beyond. Or this one is slightly more obscure, but on this one we created a deck above that overlooks the pool. So it's early days in the design. We'll get there, but just the idea, that's the idea behind this smaller building between the 2 larger buildings.
So, Sam, can I ask you a question? So what you're showing us is these are kind of the buildings, so to speak, in front of the pool.
In front of the pool. The arrival building. We're going to call it the arrival building because that's where you will arrive at the development. Yeah. And often these buildings have the branding of the development, and we'll choose that. And again, it's early days. We'll go through that with the branding department. But it sets a tone for what you see afterwards.
There's a vast difference between those 2 buildings. Which way are you leaning?
I just literally picked those 2 from our portfolio. And next time we come before you, we'll have a really good answer for you on that. But if I were forced to say something today, I would say something like that. Do you like that one? Is that the right answer?
I know that.
Okay. All right. These are just typical unit plans, a mix of 1s, 2s, and 3 bedrooms. Highly amenitized buildings, have everything you associate with a high-end apartment building, trash chute, internalized trash chutes to a trash compactor, elevators, obviously your egress and 2 stair cores, but a highly amenitized building. And this is the 5th floor. It's just this. We put this slide in to indicate initial thoughts on massing. And what we did was we pulled back the entire 5th floor, so it's recessed. It's set back about 5 feet from the face. Again, to control the mass, provides terraces for the upper floors. It's a nice design element, we think. Next slide, oh, I didn't realize I had this in my deck. The one thing I noticed when Megan brought this up the first time was that, sorry, don't be fooled by the scale. This is not the same scale as that in terms of drawing scale. You can see we cut the courtyard here to fit it all on one page. This one's not cut, so although it appears bigger, this level here is the same as that level there, but slightly lower. So that's fine here. And this is the massing. This shows the previous development and the one that we're proposing. Again, early days in the design, but you see the massing is similar. We started with a vernacular here in the architecture that attempts to modulate the facade and break up the massing. And what I mean by that is that you've taken what is essentially a flat facade and broke it up into individual elements with balconies and a recessed upper floor, and that creates visual interest. We have tools or elements of in the architectural vernacular here that we'll come back to the next time and show you what those evolve into. But items like the retail building, the direct entry to the street, the courtyards, the rival building, and the fact that we have 3 different buildings to work with, all of this provide opportunities for interesting architecture. And we'll delve into that the next go around with the architectural set.
Good evening, just for the record. Rock Emmond, Senior Civil Engineer with SLR International Corporation out of 99 Realty Drive, Cheshire, Connecticut. I'll talk a little bit about the site plan, but I'm also the slide deck man. So I'll be doing both, I guess. Just some things I want to touch on. I'm more of a numbers guy altogether. So as you can see by this particular site plan as well as the previous site plan, the biggest difference between the two from a site planning perspective is obviously the parking. The biggest thing I want you guys to realize about the parking is the density of the parking. So previously, under the proposed approved condition, it was a 1.5 space per unit baseline per the regulations with a mixed use portion for the retail space. This, they're following the kind of the Landon way of doing things. I don't have a better way to say it, but 2 spaces per unit. That is the biggest difference between that development and this development when it comes to parking. So as you can see, it kind of feels like the site plan is bigger than the other one, but actually from an impervious perspective, they're almost dead nuts the same, which I thought was crazy. The approved plan, these are from the drainage report. So under existing conditions with the existing hotel space, there's about 303,000 square feet of impervious, or 55% of both properties. The approved was 275,300. About 50% of the property. And actually under this proposal, it's 276,000, also about 50% of the property. So they're about 1,000 square feet away from each other, even with just the transference from going to a parking garage to parking. So from a stormwater perspective, we're still decreasing the amount of overall impervious that's on the site. So we're gonna be, when we come for site plan approval, we'll be dealing with stormwater quality and quantity at that point. And then just overall, as it was kind of iterated, this is much more of a safer plan. Parking garages, you know, the parking garage itself, it really comes down to different areas for people to either, you know, hide in a stairwell or just, you know, darker places. This allows for us to both control the lighting of the property as well as control the overall safety. It was iterated that we're going to be making sure that there's correct circulation throughout the property for fire access. Obviously, you can see that there's plenty of access around the building. We're going to be providing fire lanes as required, as well as we're going to be providing specifically ADA accessible spaces throughout the development to make sure that we're complying both with ADA as well as the building code to make sure that we are being, you know, equal opportunity as well as meeting all the standards. As we kind of hop around, we're also looking at the general topography. One of the biggest differences between the approved plan and this plan, obviously, again, is the parking garage. The parking garage was embedded into the slope. You have one section of parking garage that's embedded in the slope. We're modifying this to essentially get a better earthwork. We're working with the general topography. So you can see in those cross sections, the sort of the stepping as they're going with the buildings. The previous application actually had almost one consistent building going across, and you're kind of keying in the slope. This allows for, as Seelan was articulating, the different communal spaces for the amenity spaces. Those specifically are huge community spaces that'll make this area much more vibrant for the residents. Additionally, obviously, we have the retail space, which is going to be very much seen from Berlin Road. That, in and of itself, there's a different train of thought when you think about you know, a building really close to the road. It's kind of like, oh, you're putting yourself in front of there versus a parking lot. A parking lot, surprisingly enough, at least in my experience, it actually generates more traffic when you see more cars there, because you're like, oh, why are these people here? So it's almost sort of counterintuitive, but your brain kind of brings you over there. So that's another reason why this particular plan kind of anchors the area around Berlin Road versus the previously approved plan, to kind of tie everything together and, you know, activate these spaces. I know that it's gonna come out when we go through architecture in the site plan approval, or the site plan application. You know, these are gonna be highly articulated space, or highly articulated architecture. This is gonna be a high-end product for Cromwell. And this is gonna be a high-end development specifically for Cromwell that I believe, you know, the site planning is very well laid out. The utilities will be, you know, very well enforced, especially, you know, coordinating with the Cromwell Fire District. Specifically, the water main that's currently serving the existing property is essentially inoperable. You know, they're going to be providing new water services to this property. They're going to essentially have to relocate an existing trunk line, sanitary line, to make sure that this can function. These are large items to make sure that everyone in this development can have a great Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even Thursday, possible. Maybe if they go to Murphy's Pub. I don't know, maybe I'm ranting a little bit. I think that's kind of it from a site plan perspective. Obviously, once again, we're just kind of giving you guys a concept. This is a master plan approval. And we're just trying to give you guys kind of a gauge as where we're going previous from the approved project to this project. So any feedback whatsoever from you guys as we move towards a site plan submission is very beneficial. And obviously, you know, I've been working in this town for God knows how long now, but your comments and concerns mean very much to both myself as well as the developer. So if you do have any questions, obviously, we're happy to address them either here or during the site plan approval process. Tossing it to the attorney.
All right. Again, for the record, Megan Hope with Alter Pearson and Hope. So the next step in our process, I've identified on the screen in front of you, but we're currently obviously tonight attempting to amend the master plan. Following this, we will have SLR and Bainfield fully design the site plans and the architecture plans. We'll then come back here for approval on that site plan and special permit. We did have a wetlands permit that was previously approved. We may need to amend that depending on the work within the upland review area. We may not. So if we do need an amendment to that, we'll obviously do that before we come back here. Following that, we'll get our connection with WPCA. We have already confirmed that we do have enough sewer and water capacity for the project. So that's already been confirmed. We will then have to go back to the town council to assign the approved tax amendment to our entity, or tax abatement rather, to our entity. There were some dates in there when construction had to happen by, when demo had to happen by, so those obviously need to be amended because we're past those dates. We have been in the OSTA process since 2022 on and off. We do think that full certificate process will conclude shortly, but that is in progress, and obviously we need an approval from OSTA prior to being able to start construction of the buildings. And then when we do start construction, I did put a general timeline on how that would proceed. First, obviously, we would do abatement and demolition. We anticipate that would start at the end of Q1 in 2026. We would then install all the E&S controls, do the grading, and then we would do the construction of the buildings, probably starting from Berlin Road and working towards Christian Hill. But we think all of those buildings would sort of come online sort of around the same time, around Q1 of 2028. So that's sort of our general timeline. But again, we're on step one of that process and looking for obviously approval of this amendment to the master plan so that we can proceed with the more detailed plans that come within this process. So that concludes our presentation. I obviously know this is a public hearing, so we're happy to answer any questions from the public or from the commission. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask the commission, would you guys like to ask questions first, or would you rather hear from the public first?
I'd rather hear from you.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna open this up to the public at this point. Anyone that would like to make comments, please come to the mic, give your name and address for the record. Do we have a sign-in sheet or no?
No, but I'll put one up to the.
Okay.
My name is Eugenia Falco, and I live at 20 Christian Hill Road. So, some of my biggest concerns is the height of the building as compared to the height of the road. The last time this was approved, the fourth floor was like eye level to my house. And now we got another floor, or actually, I guess it's the same floor because you're taking out the garage, but I'm still gonna have a fifth floor right directly in front of my house. And that concerns me. The other thing I have a concern with is buffer zone. You know, I know we talked about a buffer zone before, and I'm still concerned about that, so I would like to have that buffer zone, because literally, that little triangular piece is my house. And I'd also like to know where the public entrance is to the wet area. I don't know if it's that little strip off of Kristen Hill Road. That would be between Rod and John's house. Or right there, okay, so that's directly across the street, okay. Just wondering. And is there any contour changes to the back of the property at all, or is that gonna be left? There is some contour changes, so I guess I'd like to know what those are. So I would like to see a cross-section of the site with elevations, not height, little elevations. Yeah, that's what I'd like to really see, and see how it's gonna affect me. So, those are some of my concerns, and I take it there's no retail on the first floor at all anymore? Cause wasn't there retail the first time around?
What we'd like to do is ask your questions,
Okay.
and then when everyone else has had their time to speak, the attorney can come back and address those questions.
Okay, that's fine.
And do them all at once rather than a back and forth.
Okay, that's
Thank you.
cool. All right, and I think that was it, except that I had sent these questions to Nick. Nick never answered my email. And then I tried calling them. Nobody answered the phone, not even an answering machine. So I thought that was rather weird, and I just thought I'd present that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patricia Dickinson. I live at 31 Coles Road. I'd like to know where the sewer line is, and beyond that was never supposed to be touched because it goes into the wetlands. And the brook is mostly on my side. They don't have much of the brook on their property. So how far is that parking coming down now to the brook? The way there, it's edging. So I would say we own most of the brook, besides my the property next door to us too. And another thing is, if they open it to the public to come to use their walking space, where is that how far down is the walking space coming? And where are the public going to park when they come to use their walking areas? Because I don't think they can use that strip between those two houses. I think they only have 17 feet there for a walk space. So, are they gonna be able to cut all the trees down on their side of the property along, where the brook would be? Supposedly the brook is on our side. We own on both sides of the brook. So, I mean, those are my concerns, because I'm on oh, yes, and then the lighting. When the Lions were there, I had to go, I didn't come to the town, I went to them personally, because their lights shine directly into my whole house on the side. Because I'm at almost like the level, because I am up higher. So the lighting is a concern, so it doesn't shine on other properties. We had problems with Lowell's shining into through the woods. They think because there's woods, And I went up to my kitchen one night and I was blinded. I said, oh my God. So the next day I went over and they did go right out and have them down on their own property, not coming onto my property. Those are my concerns.
Thank you. Anybody else?
First Light from One North Road. I basically grew up in the neighborhood, lived there for 55 years now, grew up on Christian Hill Road, and I live right around the corner on One North Road, so familiar with the area. And I'm looking forward to having the eyesore gone, and it looks like a nice plan. I do have some concerns. One, especially for the residents on Christian Hill Road, as far as the elevation goes, the height and the visibility, and what kind of screening they're gonna be able to have. I think it would be nice when you do come back with the conceptual rendering that they get a conception view from Christian Hill Road that will give them a good idea of what they will be looking at. I agree with Mrs. Dickinson's comments about the lights too, so I hope there's appropriate screening all around, because the grade, the level of the parking lot, at least now, we do get headlights shining through into the people's windows, and even mine, all the way across the lot into One North Road. And the scope of the plan, I always had concerns about having the potential of 500 cars coming and going from 372, which is already very congested. And what it's going to be now with that, plus the commercial business there, it's going to be a lot of traffic. And I know we've said that the entrance to Christian Hill Road is going to maintain emergency only. My concern is that down the road, if there's so much traffic in and out from Berlin Road, that someone's going to say, well, it's a residential area, residential units, we need to open up that drive to Christian Hill Road, and that's going to create a problem for the residents there. So I have that concern. The other thing is the grading from the parking lot up to Christian Hill Road. I don't know what the elevation is there at the very back of the property right now. There's a very steep hill there, so it would be nice, as Mrs. Falco commented, that we have an elevation view of that to see what that difference is from Christian Hill down to that parking lot. So that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Hector Nova, 22 Christian Hill. The same, I'm gonna get affected with this new construction. Always is welcome, something new like this, but you also have to protect us as a residents. There is residents there over 80 years in the area, and they're gonna get affected very bad. So my concern is how you can guarantee the access of the emergency is gonna be only access for emergency. Because eventually you're gonna deal for over 600 cars, traffic around that building. 2 cars per apartment, it's gonna give a lot of traffic. So how you can guarantee us that it's gonna be access only for emergency?
They're gonna answer your question, we're not gonna answer it now.
I don't know.
They'll answer it, yeah. After everybody speaks. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else from the public?
Oh, no, not this guy.
I know, I'm your frequent flyer tonight, James Dimitriadis, 272 Skyview Drive. First of all, I want to thank the new owners for their proposal. You know, this has been an eyesore on the town for a number of years. In fact, I think just yesterday, an urban explorer posted, hey, look at this building and look at the interior of it, to which I responded, please don't go inside. Please don't trespass on that property anymore, please, thank you. But, you know, we're very excited for the project overall. It's been a topic of conversation at several town council meetings recently as to the delays. Council is right, you know, we had a timetable set up in our abatement schedule for demolition, and, you know, the town went out and got the brownfield grant for $1 million. Stuart did an excellent job.
3 million, 3 million.
Sorry, 3 million. Stuart did an excellent job working with the state to obtain that. So we want the town, I think from the town's perspective, we want the project to move forward. So I want to just kind of comment the good, the bad, the ugly of what I'm seeing here. So I think, first of all, I think the townhouses being removed in favor of some of that buffer zone looks like an improvement. The aligning of the parking lot to no longer have all the twists and turns but be straightways, I think is an overall benefit. I was thinking of how many cars would go through and the way it used to kind of weave. I could see that being an issue. And it looks like, and I think this would be helpful, I think your architect indicated this, but the distance from Christian Hill Road to where the prior townhouse was in page 14 and 15 versus where the building would be, it seems like everything is set back further towards the 372 part of the project. So I think with the right berming or shielding, it may be a little better because of the distance. But I do think a cross-section would be helpful, especially demonstrating the kind of gradual turn, because you start at 30, I think the elevation was 30, and it goes up to 50 across the property. My concern, though, are twofold. One, the decrease in commercial space by half in the front. As you know, from the abatement perspective, the commercial space is non-abated, whereas the residential was abated. So, I'd like to see retail in the front or some restoration of some of the retail space in the front. But the other concern is that second building in the rear. This is a concern I had with the prior building when I was on the council. 5 stories, with the way that the elevation is, if there's any way to finagle the architecture to have it be a gradual decrease towards the back. One of the nice things about the townhome kind of plan was that it would kind of transition into residential. I don't know if there's a possibility for that back building to have maybe 4.5 stories, maybe it kind of tapers off as the elevation gets higher. I don't know if that's possible. I just want to make sure that the shielding or whatever is happening on the back side addresses the residents' concerns, but also allows for, you maximizing. I know you want to try to get as many units as you can in there, but, being cognizant of the residential nature of the rear. So I think if when you answer my questions, if you could just clarify the distance from where the townhouses used to be, if we're looking at that one versus where the parking is, to where now the backmost unit will be, how many feet away, and what the elevation of that backmost unit will be. I anticipate it'll probably be like at the 45 or maybe 45 mark versus where the other one would have been at the higher mark abutting the properties. But if there's any way to finagle it so that there's a little bit of a decrease as you get towards the tippy back, I think, or at least that back wing, I think it would be helpful. But otherwise, again, the parking lot improvements are really appreciated. I really appreciate the 2 parking philosophy versus the 1.5, because most people, like I live in a 2-bedroom condo with my husband, and we each have our own car. And I think that's pretty typical of a 2-bedroom. You're probably going to have 2 people. Each person's going to have their own car. 1.5 parking spaces is probably not really viable. So I appreciate the parking increases a lot. So yeah, I'd love to hear more. I want to thank you, though, also for investing in Cromwell and continuing to invest in Cromwell Council. Thank you for coming back. This is a site that needs to be improved. When we have the largest sporting event in New England and people have to drive past when they get off a highway, a blighted site, it doesn't look great. So we really want, from the town's perspective, for the project to move forward, but we want to make sure that the residents are being respected nearby, and we have that nice transition of space versus a blighted building. So thank you all for your time, your presentation, and appreciate you all.
Now, thank you, Alice. So, I got a bunch of questions. One of my major questions here, the reason why I liked, first of all,
Was the last property approved 5-story, was a 5-story approval? Was that the parking garage that was approved 5 stories?
There were, I'm gonna leave this for the attorney to answer.
Well, it was our approval, I mean,
have both plans in front of me.
I understood it, the absolute elevation of the top is the same.
yeah, all right. So I guess my question is this, the major structure, right, so the big building, the big giant block that we have, that we're looking at now with the new proposal versus the, like, what's the distance between that building and that back property line toward Christian Hill? In comparison to the old plan, I'd be curious to see what that distance is. And kind of part of what James was saying where, you know, when you had those houses or those townhouses on that side there, it kind of broke up the vision of the building, you know? It kind of gave you more of a residential feel. I'm concerned as well as what that's gonna look like from Christian Hill Road. I'd also like to know the distance, and it might be in one of these packets, the distance of that buffer that you show in the new proposal of that grass, this area right here. Wait, what is that? What is that distance? What's that actual buffer here?
So I'd like to just point out one thing.
Yes.
For everybody before we start. This is a conceptual plan,
Oh, I
okay?
know.
So to worry about exact distances in a conceptual plan stage, to worry about the size of the buffer, what's gonna be in the buffer, that's really not what we're discussing at this point. We'll see those at a detail level. Asking them those questions, you have to limit your question, the detail of your questions, because we're not at the level of detail now. We have no landscaping plan. We have no screening plan. You know, I'm just not picking on you.
Yeah, no, I
And
understand.
just
I'm not
making-
asking for trees.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
just
asking
making-
just the distance of.
Yeah, okay, so
Because a
I'm
lot of times what happens is this turns into a real plan, right?
It's
So,
gonna
I mean,
turn into a real plan.
I know, so
Yeah.
that's why I was asking what
But
the
I'm just
distance
pointing that out. I'm not picking on you or
I understand.
anything. I'm just wanna point that out before everybody gets into their questions. We're talking
Sure.
about a conceptual plan.
I
So, let's make sure the questions that we ask are conceptual. You know, they're not in detail, because we don't have a detailed plan.
Sure.
We can ask for general distances to a building, as far as what the building's gonna look like and how many levels the building's gonna have. We have a rough idea of the height of the building, you know, that's kind of where we're at. So I just wanna remind everybody, before they start formulating those questions, like, that's where we are. And I'd like to also point out, in general, that this has always been a commercial site. And it's always been a commercial site next to a residential neighborhood. It will always be a commercial site next to a residential neighborhood. So there are consequences living near a commercial site, okay? Now, this development could go away, somebody could come back with a shopping center that could have stores that are open 24 hours a day, that have deliveries around the clock. So, you know, as far as, you know, commercial development goes, you know, this is a good transition. You'd like to see this type of transition from a commercial area to a residential area, because this is really the minimal intrusive type of development that you'll see. So this is, in a planning sense, this is the ideal transition, because you're going from a commercial strip to a residential neighborhood, and in the middle of it, you're putting a residential neighborhood. So that's the positive side of it. So I want everybody to kind of keep that in mind. And again, when you're formulating your questions, you know, please have them be conceptual. General distances are okay, but we're not gonna have more, they won't have more information than that, because they haven't formulated the plans. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Again, so back to going from the old plan, and why we liked it, and the new plan, a lot of the exterior architecture and the products that they were using was gonna be in line with their product or their building on Silestine, which was nice. It wasn't just vinyl siding.
Well, that's what we're gonna see when we get to the final.
No,
plan.
I know what we're gonna see.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Fully understand.
Okay.
I'd like to know the addresses or the properties in West Hartford and Farmington that you say you have. Just curious what those properties look like. And let's see, what else do I have? That's it for now. That's it for now. I'm sure my questions get picked up.
Just two comments. One, it would be nice to know or have a picture of a rendition
what it would look like from Christian Hill looking into the complex. I think that would be a very positive thing.
That'll be seen at the final stage.
I know, but it would be nice, when the final stage, I like to see that, that's all.
Okay.
Okay? And then, it would be nice to know your plan for affordable housing.
There's gonna be 10%, just like the other project.
Well, they didn't say that, so I
Oh,
didn't
they
hear
said
that.
that at the beginning.
No, you said the original plan that was part of the abatement had affordable housing. You didn't say that this plan was having affordable housing. So it'll continue. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my concern is similar to Brian and the mayor's, where the townhouses provided a nice transition from the high density to the lower density housing. So with those gone, and the parking pushed closer to Christian Hill Road, I guess I'd like to know, what your ideas were for that transition into the residential neighborhood. And this is probably further down the road, but some sort of, because the slope is working against us, some sort of line of sight study from the homes on Christian Hill Road. And again, I know this is still conceptual, but the entrance off Berlin Road seems really tight to me right now. In the original design, there was a rotary, there was wider
rotary.
transitions.
There was no rotary in the original design.
Yeah, there was.
With an island, there was.
Yeah,
At the entrance?
right there.
Yeah, go to sheet there's sheet 14.
Yeah, this is a conceptual drawing.
Well, no, this is the old.
Yeah, that's the old
That's
concept.
the old.
Yeah,
Right past the three trees. at
Yeah,
the very
there's just a-
entrance,
yeah,
they've
they-
got a circular area. I don't know if you'd call it a rotary or not, because I don't think there's a center island. But there is a circular area denoted on that plan.
Yeah, I would see that as a rotary, but just saying that, there was more staging area for cars pulling out onto Berlin Road. Right now, we have, parking spots literally what looks like, within 20 feet of the road. I can see during your peak times, cars queuing up there and blocking a lot of those stalls and stuff. And just needing more general room, and also I think that, features like that might cut into your parking count somewhat. And so, yeah, I guess, when we get to that, if you could kind of talk about your entrance exit strategy. That's all, thank you.
Yeah, I just echo what you guys were saying as far as the setback. I like how the setback is further into 372 from Christian Hill. I think that's a positive step, but then obviously the transition and blocking of, and what the residents on Christian Hill are gonna be looking at is important. Also, John's point to the entrance, that seems like a choke point, especially with the commercial building up front there coming in. We'd just like to see probably left and right hand exit lanes there, and then a decent size entrance to the complex would be a positive step. Also, the alley between building the commercial building and the first residential building seems kind of tight as well. Would probably be looks like it would be a one-way. It would be nice to have that to be a little bit bigger, I think. And also loading zones for the commercial building too. I don't really see too much of that there, as far as if you're gonna have trucks coming in and out of that area, you're gonna need to put them somewhere, and I don't really see any of that here. That's all I really have right now.
Okay. Conceptually, the old entrance I found a lot more attractive. The new entrance, I think, has a queuing problem with the cars. There's probably a half a dozen stalls that are actually gonna be backing out into the entrance and exiting traffic. So I think that needs to be definitely looked at and studied. In the old plan, I was very happy with the amount of commercial space. In the new plan, I'm very unhappy with the amount of commercial space. If the commercial building, which I believe you're calling Building C, could be a two-story building with double the commercial space, that would really trip my trigger. The building height, as previously mentioned, I think is an issue. The old plan gave us a gentle transition with the townhouses to the rear. The new plan does not do that, although the new plan does have the building situated further downhill on the property. This is all about elevation, and it's all about line of sight. And I think we all need to see the conceptual drawings of how that's gonna work, and whether we're going backwards or whether we're going forwards. A point was made by one of the public speakers about the public access to the passive recreation area and outdoor green space. I don't believe that there is appropriate width or parking area on Christian Hill Road for people to park on Christian Hill Road and use that rear entrance. So I know that that's gonna be an emergency crash gate only. It's gonna be chained, it's gonna be gated, it's going to be key access, it's not gonna be just a rope and a string. That being said, I think somehow, some way, for the public to use that green area, they're gonna have to use it from your property, and not park on Christian Hill Road.
Can I just point one thing out?
Sure.
When they say public access, they mean the surrounding neighborhood, okay? They mean the people that already use it now. There are many people that walk their dogs there,
Okay.
who live on Christian Hill Road. They don't mean that somebody from Main Street is gonna drive over there to walk their dog. What they mean by public access is the surrounding neighborhood has access to it. They're not designing this to be an open space for the community, for the town of Cromwell. They're providing access to the surrounding neighborhood
Yep.
to use this, so they don't, people are using it now. People are basically,
Yeah,
you know,
they-
like any open space property, you know, people go there, they walk their dogs, they walk there.
So there's no
There's no,
possibility of people parking on the street and wanting to use that
no,
as their
that's not
dog
what it's
walk area?
designed for, yeah, it's not what it's designed for.
Then
It's-
it should be placarded accordingly.
Well, it's private property, and
I
it's not designed to be open to the it's not, I'll let them explain. But
Okay.
that was always the concept.
Okay.
In the original development, it was never proposed as like a public park. It was always inferred that the property is
That
available
it's
for
private
use.
property.
Yeah, but it's available for use by the surrounding neighbors.
Okay, and that's
And
fine.
that was a benefit that they were offering to the previous developer,
And
was
that's-
offering to the surrounding neighbors, and I think that's the same kind of idea here.
If that's the intent, that's great. If we have an issue of people wanting to use this as their dog park instead of the one on Coles Road,
I don't think anybody that doesn't walk their dog there, I don't think people drive there to walk their dog down.
I hope you're right.
Yeah,
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there shouldn't be any parking on Christian Hill Road. That's my
Yeah,
point.
there isn't any proposed. And I'd like to mention that we've had that emergency gate for many years.
Oh, I
And if
know,
you-
I know.
And if you think about the uses that have been at that hotel, in the largest ballroom in the state of Connecticut.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and the amount of
That needs to be
traffic.
maintained.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna require. That's what we required of the previous developer,
Okay,
and that's what we're gonna require again. And it hasn't changed over the years.
you're right.
Even when they had, you know, when you'd have 600 people in the ballroom, they weren't driving
Mm-hmm.
out to Christian Hill Road.
I can tell you that many, many years ago, it was an issue.
Right, but it's gated.
And they
It's
did
gated.
exit to Christian Hill Road, and in fact, the chain, it was a chain, it wasn't a massive gate with locks, and they would cut the chain. Believe me when I tell you, I can tell you from personal experience,
You
having,
did it?
having replaced the chain. No,
Oh, you cut the chain?
no, I replaced the chain, I can't tell you how many times. Actually, they would steal the chain, especially the four-wheelers and off-roaders, because it was a 30-foot chain, but that's another story for another
You know
time.
it very well.
I do.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Long story short, I was in love with the old plan, and with the new plan, not so much. I need to see more detail, and with that, I pass on.
Okay, go ahead.
I think everybody covered most of my questions. The only question I most likely had was, with your parking spot count, does that run all the way to the front of the commercial building? So like if that commercial building is Starbucks or something and these parking spots are full, does that count as part of your residential parking? Cause that kinda sounds like it might be a mess, but. Yeah, I mean, drive-through, I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but I think everything else has been covered and asked already, so that's all I have.
No comment at this time. I'd like to see the next drawings and probably, elevations and buffering zones.
I don't have any really comments because this is just a conceptual. I'm waiting to see the real thing. But I do want to say is that I was not in love with the old plan. I didn't like the cereal boxes that they called townhouses at all. I mean, I thought, you know, they all loved them, but I'm old and I thought they were just idiots. But, you know, but I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, things that what I call the meat of the thing. And, you know, again, you know, and I always had trouble with them calling this open space that people had access to, and I'm saying is, what people? Because it is private property. And therefore, if you fall on somebody's property, they have to carry insurance on it. And I'm just saying is, if it was just for the people that live on that property, that's one thing. But to say that it's open for people who walk their dogs up Christian Hill, I just think that, you know, I wouldn't want them coming in on my property. And I don't think anybody on Christian Hill would want people coming into their open space or their backyard and things like that. But that's beside the point, so we can move forward. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak?
No, we closed it tonight.
No, we're not.
Oh, wait.
We're still open.
Right.
Now their responses. Thank
Right.
you.
Okay. Again, for the record, Megan Hope with Alter Pearson and Hope. So just and I'm just gonna kind of go in order for the questions that we, actually, you know what? Let me start with the neighbors first, on my other page. Okay. All right, so I do think, Seelan, what we can do on that next iteration of plans, we've obviously have these cross sections, but I think what we can do is probably pull that view wider to capture the houses on Christian Hill. Right now, our cross sections are just on our site. So I think it makes sense to pull it wider, especially more towards the north. And we can actually put in, I think, the houses, however tall the houses are on Christian Hill Road, and add that into our cross section. I think that's gonna be helpful for the next iteration of plan. So that's definitely something we can do. Obviously, on the last plan that was approved, we really didn't have a lot of buffering as far as landscaping on Christian Hill Road because we had the townhouses. So that obviously is something that is gonna be changed on this plan. We're gonna have to have a robust buffering plan, which is something we didn't really have last time because we had the townhouses there. And I believe Seelan checked this as far as the distances, but it was previously those townhouses were about 50 feet from Christian Hill Road. So that's where that building was the most northerly part. Now we're pulling it back to about 260 feet from Christian Hill Road as far as building to building. So that's how much approximately it, okay, sorry, yeah, let me.
No, it's from this main building here.
Yeah.
It's all.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Do you see that?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can get an answer. I'll move on. That's okay. Yep. Okay, let's see what else. So we can definitely do the cross sections with the elevations. We previously, in the previous application, we had commercial in that front building along Christian Hill Road, and then we had it on the first floor of that next apartment building. And that's what's been eliminated with this plan. So I think there was a question, wasn't there some commercial on the first floor? It was in that first residential apartment building headed back into the site.
Christian Hill,
I mean, Berlin Road, yes, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure that
thank you.
I wasn't confused. Thank
So that was one of the areas where we eliminated some of the commercial square feet. The client does feel like what we're proposing now, this 13,000 square feet, is leasable. He thinks, especially it would be, we thinking restaurants is probably gonna be, some local restaurants is what we think will have interest here. But we feel like the 13,000 is the right amount of square footage for this size development. So it did decrease from what Lexington was doing, but we still feel like it's mixed. Obviously, your regulations don't have any specific square footage for what is mixed use, just says that you need to have some commercial and some residential as well. So we're still consistent with the regulations regarding that. Okay. Rock, with the sewer line, can you answer that question?
So actually, very similar to the previously approved project, they had to realign the sewer main on our property because it is going to honestly be in conflict with the new building. So there's going to be there's an existing sewer easement that has to be rewritten, and then the existing sewer main has to be rerouted. That's essentially what's going to be going on.
And the other thing, Rock, while you're up here, I think there was a question about parking, and is that going closer into the wetlands as was previously approved? And I know in the previous project, we had no direct wetland impact for our proposal.
So under this plan, I believe it's actually the parking that there is basically along Coles Brook is actually a little bit further away than previously approved. And I can even, hopefully it's right behind it, right? So you can kind of see it, that actual black line that's going across here is the property line. And here, the property line is actually a little bit easier to see, but you can see that we're actually going to be trying to propose a sort of landscape buffer between the parking and the property line. So we're actually pushing that parking back, probably not much, but enough that we can install a nice buffer. Next one was dark lighting. So obviously with every sort of site plan approval, we have to perform a photometric plan. Your regulations state that there can be no light trespass on neighboring property. All the light fixtures will be dark sky compliant, specifically that we will make sure that anything that's along the parking will have shields. That way it does not impact the residential neighborhood.
All right, thanks, Rock. All right, I did want to touch briefly on this public access. So our intent has always been with the public access that people are currently trespassing on the site to walk their dogs. We did get comments during the initial outreach that people wanted to be able to continue to walk their dogs. Were we going to stop them was basically what the feedback that we received. So we said we'll put in an easement saying that the public can access. We do mean the people from Christian Hill Road. That's all we're noticing who's walking their dogs there. We're not aware of anybody parking. If the commission feels like they don't want to have access for those Christian Hill neighborhoods, we don't have to have it in the plan. We incorporated it before because residents had asked for it. So that's the genesis of how that got there. But we're not anticipating anybody to drive here and park. I don't think anybody's doing that now. So the intent is that it's really just would be a neighborhood sort of access space. And just to be clear, I know the Christian Hill Road has that tail piece that goes out between the houses. That is not where access would be. That's just where the existing frontage is now on that lot. And I know if you can see sort of on this plan, and we had this in the previous plan, we were proposing to buffer behind that house because it is open right now. So we were going to, in the previous plan, there was buffering that was proposed there. We would do that, but we would also plant trees in front of that tail out to Christian Hill Road so that people would know that's not the correct location to walk in. You need to walk in over where the sidewalk connection is. So we weren't proposing any gates or anything out, just more do it with a visual tree or other buffering just to prevent people from accessing between the houses, push them further to where the sidewalk is into our site. Okay. All right. Okay, so I know there was a question about the gate and how we can guarantee that it would remain. I think Mr. Kanata explained it pretty well, that we're not just talking about a chain, that it would be a heavy gate, probably have a knock box or some other mechanism that emergency services would break in the need of an emergency. And because this will be part of our approved plan, if we ever wanted to change it, we'd have to come back to this commission for approval. So it's not something we could just take off the plan. It would be integral to our approval, be part of the approved site plan, recorded on the land records. It really would be up to the commission at a later date upon somebody's request if they wanted to remove it. And I know that with the previous application, we obviously went through a full traffic study, parking analysis. We do have the state reviewing everything because we're on the state road and we're obviously close to 91 as well. So they've felt confident that the traffic can safely enter and exit from Berlin Road, and that we don't need a second access point. Sometimes with developments, you do need a second access point, but the traffic report that was approved has showed that it will work. We've obviously decreased the commercial square footage and the apartments slightly. So if anything, I think our projected traffic will be less than what was previously approved. Okay. Let's see what else here. All right, we did decrease 5 stories. Okay, so again, we did a question about the 5 stories, and I did think I mentioned this during the presentation, but I'll reiterate it. Previously, the most rear apartment building that was sort of next to the parking garage went up to elevation 106.64. So that's the top of the building, that's what the elevation was. And now the top of our building in that same location is 106. So essentially the same as far as elevation. Again, I think if we did the cross section, pulling it more towards the north with the house on Christian Hill, we can better show that. But just to reiterate that point, we're up to that same elevation. Okay. I'm going to get into the questions that we received from the commission. Do we have a 210? Okay, so to answer your question, 210 feet. Okay, so we've increased it another 50 feet. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so again, I know there was a lot of questions about the buffer. We have about 50 feet of green space there. I don't know yet, Rock, if we know what the topography or grading would be like there, if you can, yeah.
So, as we do in every kind of site plan, especially with something like this, the grading of the parking is essentially going to try and tie into existing grade as fast as possible. So most of the buffer is anticipated to be the existing trees that are there today, the existing mature trees, along with probably a robust landscape plan just north of the parking, to make sure that, one, we're kind of, I think there was a question regarding headlights. We'll have low-lying shrubs that are probably about 3 to 4 feet tall, evergreen style. That way they obscure headlights. Additionally, we'll have some trees that are spaced per your regulations to make sure we're meeting all the requirements. And that'll kind of fill in the gap. And then obviously we have the mature trees that'll remain in place. A mature tree could get upwards of 60 feet. If we're at about elevation 63 at the top of Christian Hill Road, you're probably looking more at the canopy being above the building, at which obviously when we come back for the site plan approval, there'll be a view shed analysis for you that'll basically tell you, hey, this is what you're essentially going to be seeing for this building from the perspective Christian Hill Road, from the road, or potentially from a neighboring property on maybe like the second floor of the house. That way you kind of get a great idea of this is what you're going to be seeing from this neighborhood.
Thanks, Rock. Some of the other, and just to be clear regarding the affordable, we're maintaining the affordability component that we agreed to in the tax abatement agreement. So that will be 10% of the multifamily units for 40 years, and that'll be at the 80% AMI. So that we're not proposing any changes to what was previously agreed to. Again, that's in that agreement with the town council, but I can make that representation here. I think when we were here the last time, we hadn't gotten to that town council phase, so we weren't quite sure when you voted, but we could say that with certainty at this point. Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
How many units would you assume that could be close to?
10% of 267, so 27.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, no. We brought Rock here to answer that question. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's okay. Okay. But it's honestly close to what it was before, because we actually had 200, and it's a little bit more because we had 254 apartments before. So we got a couple more with this scenario. Okay. We do the comment about the parking spaces close to Berlin Road. I think we definitely can look at that. And you want to talk to that, Rock?
So obviously everything's tied to the parking demand. So as you can see, the previously approved plan that was based on what I said, the 1.5 and the mixed use, this is 2 spaces per unit. Average market today is more like 1.8. So I think when we come back for a site plan, those spaces will probably get eliminated and that entryway will be a little bit more defined for you to make sure there's proper circulation. And we may be, we'd have to double check to see if there's a waiver request for a small reduction in parking, even though the regulation technically says 1.5. I know we're probably gonna go more towards 2, but if we could eliminate the 10, 12 spaces to make it a better entryway, I think that's probably something that we'd like to discuss and something that you probably would like to gain as well. So that'll come obviously with the updated site plan.
And one of the things we had submitted with the previous application, which is something we maybe want to discuss, we did have a shared parking study that we submitted with the previous application because obviously we're providing parking for the residents and parking for the commercial, but at night there's no cars there for the commercial uses. So some of the residents are able to park there, and then when they go to work in the morning, there's some more flexibility. So we had provided a shared parking analysis previously that gave a peak number of parking spaces that the traffic engineer, he did an analysis based on the ITE manual to give us what that peak parking number was, and then we made sure that we had that on site. So that's what we had done previously, and that's something we could update with this current, but that might give you some more comfort regarding the number of parking spaces that we have, and then potentially we may have some room at the front part to create some more queuing space. Okay, and we could look at the rotary too. I know that was another question as well. Okay, and I think we definitely heard you guys on the loading zone, which is something we can incorporate into the next plan. Think about how those commercial developments would get serviced as far as delivery vehicles as well. Okay.
Do you also ever provide a loading, call it a loading zone if you want, but, I mean, you're talking 260
For residents?
units.
Yeah.
For the residents to be able to show up with a moving van or whatever and load and unload. I don't know if that's worked into your parking plan or if it's just kind of hunt and peck and get what you get.
Yeah, we could definitely have a designated move-in area for next time, and we can also discuss, we obviously have a lot of experience in managing these developments, so we could talk about how it typically works as far as move-in days and times and things like that. So we could put a narrative together for that. Yeah.
There's going to be a fair amount of coming and going.
For sure.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. If I missed anything, or if anybody had any additional questions based on my responses.
On the 10% affordable content, could you give us some kind of a breakdown in the future of what those units are going to consist of? Studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, how many of each, and what the breakdown would be?
Yeah, so
I don't need that this instant.
Sure.
But
Yeah, we can yeah, we could put that on the next set of plans.
Thank you.
That's not a problem. Very doable. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. So I think that answered, I tried to answer all the questions that we got from the public and from the commission. We're happy to answer any other questions. And also, if there's also any other feedback that you want to be sure we incorporate.
Just to pick up on what Brian said, the addresses for the other complexes that you guys are building?
Yeah, so very quickly. I just want to make this first point before I get to that. Line of sight diagrams, absolutely. We'll get those to you. Those are going to be important. And it's our opinion that addressing scaling down to the neighborhood with a larger setback works much better than a 2-story townhouse. So we'll show you that. In terms of our work, I just Googled it now because I had to. There's a project we do placemaking and amenity consulting. The Farmington projects are that. It's Pondview, Batterson Park Road, and there's one on the hill in Farmington. Those are interiors, so don't judge the exteriors on that in terms of our work. The exteriors is in West Hartford, there's LaSalle and Arapahoe. It's a new project called Center Park Place, going up in the middle of town. It'll start construction in a few months. And if you are Googling us, then we just finished the Delamar Mystic, and the Delamar at Mystic. It's one of ours. And we have a very large project in Darien called the Colburn District. So we're reimagining the center of downtown Darien. So those are a few.
Okay. right, so I think just to sum up, I obviously know this is.
Can I ask you
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
one last thing?
Mhm.
Could you use the large map and show where the woman who was concerned that you might be on her property, where your property is compared to her property?
Sure, Rock, can you with that red
Yeah.
thing? But that's not our property.
That's,
Right, so
that's
sh-
Lowe's.
Right, so show us where the, can you just highlight where our property line is? Because, right there, because we're not going beyond that point. Because we're not allowed to, because it's on our property.
We essentially maintain our property to the west of Coles Road.
So, where her property is, I'm imagining Lowe's is down here, okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you need to go back to the smaller one. Yeah, you need to go back to, yeah, so her property would be here, and here, the brook
Okay.
is going, yeah, over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and just to be clear, what we're proposing in that 15R Christian Hill Road, which is that abutting properties, we're not proposing to do any work in there except for planting trees. We haven't programmed it, but we were thinking passive recreation uses, benches, something like that. We're not proposing anything active like a pickleball court or anything like that. It would be passive walking trails. And I don't believe we're proposing to cut down any trees either. My understanding of where that sort of clearing is on the plan is there's one sort of existing now. And then we're proposing to do some additional buffering where we're showing those trees on that one house that's sort of next to that strip. Right, next to the finger, correct. Because that one I believe when I had been out there before, it's that resident's lawn and then it just keeps kind of going. And we really wanted to differentiate so that people weren't walking into that neighbor's property. So we felt like we would accentuate that property line with some plantings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stuart, do you think you could have Jennifer send us in an email the addresses of the properties so that anyone on the commission here could either Google them or visit them if we're out and about, that kind of thing?
You mean, which properties?
The properties that,
They're doing in Connecticut
that the
right now.
attorney had just
Yeah, we could-
identified.
Yeah, I'll get the information.
If you could get the information out to all the commissioners.
Yeah, we could send an email with like hyperlinks in it if that
Yeah,
helps.
you can send me that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Thank
he
you
could
very
forward
much.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's not a problem. So just I guess to conclude, our plan continues to be consistent with the POCD. Obviously, this site was specifically called out for mixed-use development. We think we've proposed an amendment to that existing plan that still has a good mix of legitimate commercial space and residential apartments that we feel like are still needed in town. We do agree by placing that commercial square footage closer to Berlin Road, we are continuing that sort of natural transition from commercial next to the road to residential. And as we move forward, I think we heard the commission and the neighbors loud and clear. Buffering is extremely important. We need cross sections and views from Christian Hill Road. And also we'll refine some of those site plans with some of those finer details on the drive aisles, the parking spaces. And I think next time too as well, we can probably expand this plan and do like our rendered site plan over an aerial as well, so we can see some of those neighboring properties as well. I think that would help with the discussion. So yeah, we could definitely do that. That's not a problem. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that the commission has, or.
Stuart, I have a question for you, because this is a modification or to the original, right?
Right.
So therefore, like, we had like 1.5 car parking spaces. Don't know about half a car. That, now we're in 2.
What's our new regulation?
So that's our new regulation.
Our new
is
regulation
Right,
is two.
is two.
So
So
they
this
are
ap-
meeting the new regulation.
So
Yes.
this applies to this, because they modified it.
When they come in with the site plan, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
no, when they come in with the site
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
I actually have one more question. So you're counting the sites, right? So are you counting the ones in the commercial area?
Yeah, so the parking count we gave for 533 is the parking for everything that's on site. So we have the 2 for the apartments, and then we have more parking spaces than that for the commercial. Right. And we didn't complete that shared parking analysis, but if that's, we had we did that last time, and if that's important, we can, or we don't have to. It's obviously up to.
Yeah,
obviously
we'll see all the detailed information when we get to that stage.
Right.
I think the shared parking would be important, especially since you're targeting it towards restaurants, which
Mhm.
may be open later in the evening as regular business.
I'm just asking also when you're coming with the new one, is that because a lot of these places, you have people coming, but they do have visitors.
Yep.
So are you having any designated spots that's called visitors?
Yeah. Yeah, so part of the 2 calculation is our visitor spaces. And I think what we're finding is for actual residents' cars, it's really like a 1.7 is what is actually needed. And so we give that buffer up to the 2 because that incorporates visitors. So and obviously that's in their experience and doing multiple, you obviously have your own regulation, which we're meeting, but it's also important for us to have enough parking for our development as well, because that makes it successful. So yes, we feel like our 2 captures what our residents would need, and then also visitors.
In your typical residential plans, do you guys like number the parking
Like assign it?
to assign to the,
We don't. I know everybody always asks that, but
well, I mean,
yeah.
if you're living and there's only left parking.
So what is your next step?
Sure. So our next step is really to let SLR loose on the plan, and they need to do obviously a total set of site plans. So that's your 40 scale set of plans with grading and drainage.
The works.
The works. And then I think at that point, we will need to determine, do we need a new wetland permit? Do we need to modify that existing permit? So we don't really know that until SLR does all the grading. And then we would come back to you after either having modified our wetland permit or getting a new one. And then we'd obviously have a full set of site plans, architecture, these additional cross sections, more details on the landscaping plan, the lighting. We'd have that full thick set of plans. So that would be our next step, is really to take this to a fully engineered set of site plans.
So in terms of, and you probably can't answer this yet, but I'm gonna ask it anyhow. In terms of the grant and the demolition,
We're working on that.
you're working on the grant, but my question is, with the grant and the demolition, when do you anticipate the demolition would start? And is the demolition contingent upon approval, or do you think demolition could start virtually immediately?
So, yeah, we need approval, right? Yeah, so we do need approval, because we're still under contract to purchase this, so we're not gonna, all the deposits have gone hard, so we need approval so that we
Yep.
can close.
Yep.
And then we're estimating, if all goes to plan, that we'd be able to demo at the end of Q1, 2026.
So we're looking at 6 months to start demo,
So,
assuming approval goes
Correct.
relatively rapidly.
Correct.
so Stuart, we need to
right, yeah.
do approval tonight so that they can start.
Right, and I just wanna go back to the grant for a second. So
Right.
we received a $3 million grant from the state
Right.
of Connecticut based on the demolition of the building.
Right.
So the demolition of the building and all the things that are entailed with the demolition of the building is not gonna change. That's a done deal, that's a done story. The question is, with the $3 million grant, there are certain restrictions. So a good example is when they did what's the building, the Ames building in Rocky Hill. Okay, so they got big grant there, okay, from the state.
They didn't use it.
They didn't, no, what they did was they took that grant and they reduced it to $1 under $1 million. So it lessened basically the restrictions that are placed on you when you use state money.
Right.
Such as Davis-Bacon wages, and also with the latest round of brownfield grants, what the state did was they incorporated many, many requirements in regards to housing. So they have requirements for a larger percentage of affordable housing. They have actually requirements for what the market rate could be on the other housing. So there's a lot of restrictions. So basically, what the previous owner was and what the new proposed owner is doing is they're looking at that grant and they're seeing what aspects of that grant can they live with, and is it possible to reduce the amount of the grant, such as they did with the Ames facility, to allow for a little more flexibility. So we're in the process of reviewing the grant.
So it's a study, it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. So, you know, they would go forward as they gave you their schedule, and obviously, you know, everybody would like to use some of that state money, but we have to see what is gonna be really possible. And that's what we're trying to determine. The state is aware of that. The DEC office knows that we're still working on that aspect of it, and they're waiting for our response.
So from a timing standpoint, do you anticipate, or I should say, does SLR anticipate that we'll see you in a month? Are we gonna see you in 2 months?
We gotta approve this.
Oh,
Yeah, it's more like between 6 to 8 weeks, because we need to obviously do an entire zoning analysis
I
on
get
top
it.
of everything,
I get
put
it.
everything together. But don't worry, we'll have award-winning landscape architect Jason Williams on the case.
So that'd be good, so we could be looking at a nice Christmas present, right?
Yes. Do you want,
Actually, it's
Do you
them
want
that's
it
getting
wrapped?
the Christmas.
No, I know, I said we could be looking
From us.
at a Christmas present coming for us with a great plan to move ahead, right?
I will say right now, if
Well, that's why I'm pushing.
I will wrap it,
Thank
just
you.
just for
Thank
you.
Thank you. This has been a long, painful, laborious process, and I know that the entire town, from the mayor down to the resident on the other side of town, everybody wants this done, everybody wants this to
Yes.
go. But we wanna do it once and right, not twice and wrong.
So we need to close the public hearing.
Anybody done? Everybody done? Can I make a motion to close the public hearing?
Sure.
Okay, so moved.
Okay, second, please. Oh, did you second? Okay, second.
All in favor? Aye. Public
Okay.
hearing is closed.
All right, make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the concept plan of application 2523, application to amend special permit under section 3.6.C.4, Town of Cromwell zoning regulations to modify the master plan at 100 Berlin Road.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good luck.
Thank you.
Good job.
And I will compliment you, that was an
Yes.
excellent presentation. I was not a happy camper walking into this room tonight, and you convinced me.